The sea kept its silence for 3 days. Bacon spoke to no one beyond necessity, and the sailors, hand-picked by the crown yet sworn to no flag, watched him with the wary respect given to prophets or to men already half in the grave. They knew neither his name nor his purpose, only that a royal pouch had purchased their tongues and sealed their fate for this singular silent voyage. On the 4th night the wind turned sharp, clouds creeping over the moon, until the world became a study in shadows. Bacon stood at the bow, cloak snapping behind him, the salt air biting his skin. He felt older here, where the horizon held no memory, and the waves erased each hour as soon as it passed. Behind him came the soft tread of boots. "Cold night for a gentleman," the ship's master murmured as he approached. A gaunt man with a weather-beaten beard and eyes pale as sea-light. Bacon did not turn. "Cold is honest," he said. "It demands nothing but endurance." The captain studied him for a breath. "We'll reach open waters by dawn. After that, there's no turning back." Bacon kept his gaze on the black horizon. "There was no turning back the moment I dipped my quill." The captain scratched his beard. "Begging your pardon, sir, but men who leave England in winter tend to be running from one of two things, debt or death." Bacon allowed himself a faint, humourless smile. "Both are creditors without mercy, but only one is just." The captain accepted the riddle without pressing further. "If you need anything, warmth, food, company, you've only to ask." Bacon finally looked at him. Company is the first luxury a scholar learns to forfeit. With a nod, the captain retreated, leaving Bacon alone at the bow, where the wind howled like a living creature. Bacon closed his eyes, letting the spray sting his face. With each crash of the waves, England receded further, not merely as a place, but as a chapter finished by firelight and sealed in wax. He reached into his cloak and withdrew a small leather pouch. Inside were 3 objects: a compass, a quill trimmed by his own hand, and a scrap of parchment bearing a single phrase he had written the night before departure. "For knowledge is the soul's inheritance, and the world its proving ground." He folded the parchment again and pressed it to his chest. The wind shifted. Something in the air changed, an unfamiliar scent, metallic and sharp. Bacon opened his eyes. A sailor on the starboard rail shouted, "Lights off the water!" The captain rushed from the quarterdeck. "What fool's talk is that?" But then Bacon saw it too, dim flickering glows drifting low across the waves, not lanterns, not reflections. Something older, stranger, moving with the tide like wandering stars. The captain cursed under his breath. "St. Elmo's fire? At this latitude?" "No," Bacon whispered, leaning forward. "This is no saint's blessing." The lights danced along the swells, weaving in patterns that felt almost deliberate, an alphabet of storms, a scripture of the deep. Bacon watched, entranced, until a sudden crack split the air. The mast groaned. Sails snapped violently against the rising gale. "Storm front!" a sailor cried. But Bacon was not looking at the clouds. He was watching the lights extinguish one by one, as though swallowed by something waiting beneath the surface. The sea shuddered. The ship lurched. And for the first time since England had slipped behind the mist, Francis Bacon felt fear, not of death, but of discovery. "Captain," he said, voice low, "tell your men to secure the deck." "Aye, but why?" "Because," Bacon murmured, eyes fixed on the black waves, "the ocean is not alone tonight." The wind roared, lanterns swung violently. The ship plunged into the heart of a rising storm, as if the Atlantic itself had been stirred awake by the arrival of a man determined to rewrite the fate of kingdoms. And far beneath the waves, something answered. Dawn broke like a blade through cloud and mist. For hours the ship had drifted in uneasy silence, the storm exhausted, the sea still heaving in long, tired breaths. Bacon stood at the bow, his cloak heavy with salt, watching the faint line of land emerge through the thinning fog. At first it seemed no more than a smudge, an indistinct shadow between grey water and greyer sky. But as the sun lifted, the coast revealed itself in pieces, low marshland, dark clusters of pines, and the thin trace of smoke rising from a place that clung stubbornly to the earth, Jamestown. Bacon exhaled, a slow, deliberate release he had been holding since England vanished behind white water weeks ago. So, this is the edge of the world, he murmured. Thomas Elwood appeared beside him, eyes narrowed against the wind. It looks smaller than I imagined. Great beginnings seldom look grand, Bacon replied. Rome was once only huts on a hill. Croft and Gabriel joined them as the ship angled toward the river's mouth. Crewmen shouted, ropes were thrown, sails lowered. The timbers groaned beneath them like a beast relieved to reach shore alive. As they drifted closer, Bacon studied the settlement with the scrutiny of a man appraising a patient's pulse. Wooden palisade walls, some crooked from age or neglect. A handful of dwellings, smoke rising thinly from their chimneys, figures moving slowly, burdened by hunger or cold, nothing majestic, nothing mighty, yet it held something England no longer possessed, possibility. The longboat was lowered into the water. Bacon descended last, stepping carefully, adopting again the measured frailty of Master Elias Howard, the disguise that would keep him invisible long enough to escape. As the boat reached the muddy shore, a group of colonists approached. A weary militia captain, a thin cleric, and a ledger-bearing official whose ink-stained fingers trembled from the cold. Their eyes were not hostile, only exhausted, cautious, and surprised to see a man of learning emerge from a ship meant only for supplies. You are Master Howard, the official asked, lifting the forged letter with stiff fingers. Elias Howard, Bacon said softly, bowing with academic restraint. Former lecturer of natural philosophy sent by the university to survey conditions of instruction. He allowed a cough, genuine from the salt in his throat, to interrupt him, though I fear I lack the vigor I once possessed. They accepted him easily. Men on the edge of survival seldom questioned a story that promised help or knowledge. The colonists led him along the narrow dirt path toward the gate. His young companions followed behind, heads lowered, pretending the subservience of hired hands. Inside the palisade, life moved at the slow, strained rhythm of a settlement suspended between endurance and collapse. Children with hollow cheeks watched from doorways. Women carried water from the river. Men patched walls, mended nets, argued in weary whispers over dwindling stores. The smell of damp wood, smoke, and unwashed labor filled the air. Bacon took it all in. The struggling order, the fragile hopes, the persistent will to remain. This was not the empire England boasted of in Parliament. This was its truer face. Survival clinging to the edge of a continent too vast for any crown to claim. The official brought Bacon to a small hut near the palisade wall. This will serve as your quarters, Master Howard. The colony is humble, but not inhospitable. Bacon bowed. Knowledge asks for nothing but a roof and a table. When the door shut and footsteps faded, he straightened fully, letting the scholar's frailty fall from his shoulders. He walked to the window, a crude slit cut into the timber, and gazed beyond the settlement, where the forest rose in dark, endless waves. Thomas entered behind him. My lord, he said quietly, we are truly here. Yes, Bacon replied, at the edge of the known world. And what now? Bacon reached into his satchel and withdrew the hide map, the one drawn by native hands, marked with symbols older than Jamestown, older than England's fantasies of dominion. He laid it on the table, smoothing the creases as though unveiling a relic. Now, he said, we begin the work that will outlast kings. Gabriel stepped closer. How long do we stay? As long as it takes for them to stop looking at us, Bacon said. A week, a month, perhaps longer. Trust is a slow herb. It must root before it can be plucked. Croft leaned against the wall, arms crossed. And when they trust us? Bacon's eyes lifted toward the western horizon where the trees seemed to breathe. Then we vanish, he said softly, into the interior, into the truth this continent has hidden long before England ever dreamed of claiming it. The wind pressed against the hut, carrying the scent of pine and river. Bacon closed the map carefully. Let England believe I am dead, he murmured, for today a ghost arrives in the new world.